What is going on, everybody? It is Bush Fishing, and we are back working on this 1963 18 horse behind me. You'll see me pull it up in a second, but if you haven't watched the previous video, go ahead and watch that. That's diagnosing it. We diagnosed it as low compression, no fuel getting to the lower cylinder, and it needing a carb kit. I'll show you that in a second. We got a rebuild kit, but before we get into the video, if you guys are new here, I'm Bush Fishing, or Teo. I run ST Marine, and we do a lot of outboard, inboard, stern drive repair, and soon we'll have some fiberglass and gel videos coming up. But if that's anything you guys are interested in, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Do have some fishing content coming back. I'm going to be going to Florida for 2 weeks in about a week here, so I'm kind of debating whether or not I'm going to make some fishing videos down there. But if you like that, subscribe as well. If you want any Bush Fishing ST Marine merch, first link down in the description below. And we will also have a new website up January 1st. Right now it is December 29th. January 1st is going to be a new website up. If you guys are in southeastern Wisconsin, kind of Lake Country area, head over to that website if you got something you want worked on. In this video, first thing we're going to do is rebuild the carb, get that back on, put on the new head gasket, put the head back together. He did not want anything done with the compression issue. If you guys remember, or if you haven't seen it, 80-90 psi on this motor. The rings are super worn out, and the head gasket was improperly installed. Wasn't torqued right, wasn't torqued in sequence, and there was some kind of sealer used on the head gasket. So we got a brand new one here. Went with the Sierra replacement, part number down below, and you can clearly see it says do not use sealant. We're going to be installing that, and we have a genuine Evinrude carb rebuild kit, part number down below, and I'll show you the float here. So I was trying to figure out what would make the float look like this, and I'm pretty sure it started on fire. There's holes through it, it was all messed up, and this didn't have the updated needle, float needle, that comes with a little clip, so the needle was getting stuck and it wasn't getting enough fuel. So I'm gonna switch the camera angle, and let's rebuild this carb. Alrighty, so we got our body and the new float and old float laid out. We're not gonna be using very many of these old parts, so those are gonna stay over there. The reason we're going in is because this is what the spark plugs look like. One is black, this was upper cylinder. We know this one was getting fuel. This bottom one's perfectly clean. It was either not sparking or not getting enough, but we checked spark and we verified that it was getting spark, so most likely it's going to be fuel. Compression is not helping that, but in our new kit we get new gaskets right here, and we also get new needle seat, needle, and the clip that holds it together, as well as a seal that was missing before. Over here we have all of our gaskets and stuff, and then a new float pin. So let's get to work. I'm gonna start off on the body of the carburetor. I've already got this one cracked out. Make sure that you use a big enough screwdriver. This has just one of the felt seals on it, but we're gonna pull out the float seat, set that down over there, and crack open the new one. Float pins are very delicate, don't lose those. But this is the seal that is meant to be used with the float seat. So we'll pop that on, thread this in. No real torque spec on this because you're going to be doing it with a screwdriver, but just make sure that it is very tight. All right, with that torque down, we're going to pull off this seal right here. We're going to leave that off for now. I'm just kind of going to spray out the body of this. It's not too bad. I got most of the cracked float out of it. There were a bunch of pieces in there. The bowl is what we're really worried about. So for now, I'm gonna grab me some carb cleaner and spray it out. And before that, I'm gonna move my heater. All right, so I went ahead and went outside and sprayed everything just so I don't die in here. Next up, we remove rubber gasket here, seal the tube. We're gonna pop a new one back on. Now we're ready to start assembling the float. What we're gonna need is our new float pin. We got new float pin, float, and the needle, and the new clip. So this is kind of delicate. What we're gonna do, hopefully you guys can see this. This little pin gets wrapped around the top of the needle and it will clip into the needle. So clipped into the needle, it looks like this. Now we're gonna hang it on the float just like that, and we're gonna delicately sit it in. Try and get the carb level if you can. Put the float over the top and get the needle to sit right down in there. And then you're going to push your pin through. There's a flange on one side of the pin, the other side it doesn't, and then just get it sit down in there like that. So this is upside down. If you hold the carb right side up, you'll see that the float hangs. When the float hangs, fuel is allowed to go into the carburetor, into the float bowl. When the float comes up, that pin comes up, and it simultaneously stops fuel flow. As a general kind of basis to follow, when you hold the float, when you hold this carburetor upside down, the float level should be even with the mounting surface of the float bowl, meaning that the float should be perfectly level with the surface of the carb. So this one looks pretty good. If it's bent, if it's say on an angle like this, then you'll have too little fuel, and if it's on an angle downward, you'll get too much fuel and the carb will overfill. Our old one didn't have this little clip here. which forces the pin to open up when the bowl's empty. And because of that, a lot of them will have the pins get stuck in the float seat, and then your float will be open like it's supposed to be filling, but it won't fill with fuel and you won't be able to run. Next up, we're gonna grab our float bowl gasket. Can only go on one way because fuel comes in from here. There's an extra hole for that. We're gonna grab our float bowl, gently set it down, trying to line up all the holes on our own. It's not gonna sit all the way tight, and the reasoning for that is we just replaced that top gasket. We'll drop our screws in now, dropping in all 5 of them. Now we just want them to get through the gasket so we're not screwing into the gasket, kind of wiggle it around a little bit. And then we will grab our screwdriver. We're going to kind of go on an angle, opposites left and right, corner to corner, but you want to get them threaded in just until they're seated, just until you feel a little bit of pressure. This step is important to make sure they go down evenly because we're compressing 2 gaskets, not just 1. So I'm just kind of going around tightening them up. So with all those lightly seated, we're kind of compressed the top gasket already. Now we're going to go, I'm starting with this screw, then I'm going to go to this one, to this one, to this one, to this one. Now we're going to kind of reef on them a little more. I'm going to thread it in till it really wants to stop, but not forcing it. And I'm going to do all these screws in that pattern. All right, and lastly, we're going to do same pattern, but really get some pressure on them. And I'm just going to go over everything a second time to verify. So just like that, our carburetor is almost assembled. Let's kind of have a look around, make sure that the gasket's seated properly, nothing looks weird. A way to test our work, if we hold the carburetor upside down like this, the float should be closed right now. So if we blow in to the bottom fuel inlet, can't get anything through. But if I hold it right side up, right now the bowl's empty, you can hear that I'm getting air through into it. So we know the float's working, and there should be a good working carburetor. Alrighty, so now with this carburetor reassembled, we're gonna have to replace the gaskets on the needle, but we'll do that once it's in. I'm gonna install the carburetor back on the same way it came off. They're super simple. If you wanna see the full process in depth, really talked about, I have a video on a Johnson 35 horse that I can link here, or one, I don't know if I have one on the 20 horse, but the 35 horse really takes care of it and goes in depth on this whole motor. So go ahead and take a look at that, but I'm gonna get this reinstalled now. Alrighty everybody, let's get this video finished up. We're gonna install the head now. Your new head gasket is directional, only fits on one way, and it's gonna be this way, but we're gonna put it on the head with the bolts through it. For now I'm gonna sit that there. We've got our head cleaned up and we've got the head surface cleaned up. We checked for squareness on it all. So now I'm gonna go with the 2 center bolts. I'm gonna shove those 2 in there. And then I'm gonna put the gasket on those 2 bolts. Just like that, make sure everything lines up, looks right, all the bolt holes are lined up, which this is not. Slap around this way. Alrighty, so rings lined up, everything's good. I gave the cylinders a quick spray of fogging oil because this motor is gonna sit for the rest of the year. And we're gonna line the head up with the bolt holes. We're gonna lightly get these guys threaded in. Just wanna get them started. And now we just gotta get the rest of them started, making sure that they're going through the gasket. Just a couple threads. I got these bolts cleaned up. We will be reusing the bolts. Probably a good idea to replace them, but can get away with reusing them. They're not torque to yield bolts or anything like that. So we'll get these installed. We're gonna snug them down lightly, and then first pass we're gonna torque them to 12 foot-pounds, and second pass we're going to torque them to 22 foot-pounds in sequence. And then we'll get this motor out of here and delivered back to the gentleman so he can leave her on the boat for the rest of the year. Running with some mice in here the other day. Set the traps out. Little bastards ate the peanut butter but didn't get caught in the trap. Alright, let's run these down with the cordless ratchet just to get the head sitting on the surface nice and even, and then we'll go about torquing. Even if you don't have the torque pattern, you're going to start from the center and then go opposite, opposite, opposite. Alrighty, starting with the center. Alright, we're already there. This is the 12 foot-pound pass. That should be good. Go ahead and take a look around, make sure your gasket's all seated, but looks good to me. Now we're going to reinstall our spark plugs back in the holes they came out of. I know that because my top plug was dark, bottom plug was light. Get those 2 screwed in. Now we'll grab our 13/16, torque that baby up so the crush washer gets crushed. Now we will reinstall our plug wire leads, this one being top. and this one being bottom. Now all we got left on this motor is to unplug the 2 fuel lines off the fuel filter, and we're going to be reinstalling with an inline fuel filter. Alrighty everybody, I got the fuel filter installed, everything's put back together now. Did a quick pull with the little bit of fuel that was in there and it popped right over. I am going to be running this on water before I give it back to the guy, but I don't have any here. So this is where I'm going to be ending the video. Sorry it got a little kind of quick at the end. It is New Year's Eve right now and I need to get this thing finished up. So yeah, that's kind of how I go through, taking on a new motor, looking through it, going through everything and figuring out what's wrong with it. Hopefully you guys have a good New Year's. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Got a lot more coming. We're going to have some inboard stuff coming up right after this, maybe a little bit of fishing, but coming into the spring and the summer, my goal is to bring you guys with me on everything. So hopefully we start doing a little better, more subscribers, more views, and I can do it even more. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.